Carl, you mentioned the Ed Reed situation. First and foremost, you told us earlier today that you think that he is the man for the job. Why did he not get it?
Well, first and foremost, I think that what you have to look at when you bring in somebody like Ed Reed and you look at any situation where you're dealing with an NFL player, those guys are used to seeing things done at the highest level. And so it's going to cause frustration for them when things are done that way. But one thing that I do wish, and when I saw the video initially of Ed Reed and the comments that he made on Instagram, I wish that he would not have done that, because I knew when he did that, I had a pretty good idea that this situation would end that way. I was hopeful that they could sit down behind the scenes and solve this issue for the benefit of the players, for the benefit of the students, but they weren't able to come to that agreement. But it is a disappointing thing, because in this situation, the only people that lose are the kids.
Yeah, and currently students are protesting on campus, calling for the Board of Trustees to resign, calling for Ed Reed to be their head football coach. I know that you've spoken with some student athletes about how all of this went down. They wanted him to be their head coach. They were excited about the early energy that he brought on campus. And I would say that, you know, the people making these decisions at Bethune-Cookman would argue that this decision was in the best interest of the student athlete. What's your response to that argument?
Anytime that you speak on something that people don't want you to talk about, it's going to bring scrutiny from the people that you work for. But you do have to take these students' concerns seriously. My son played at Bethune-Cookman. He was a member of their recruiting class under head coach Terry Sims. And those guys had issues the entire time that they were there. You have eligibility issues similar to what we saw at FAMU. You have equipment issues. There's players on the team that are sharing helmets. You have scholarship issues not getting covered. Financial aid needs not being met. And so at some point, those conversations are going to have to be had, whether it makes people feel uncomfortable or whether they're not uncomfortable. And Ed Reed is a person who spoke on it, and he committed a sin when he did that, because people don't want those kind of things talked about.
Yeah, Carl, you said it. The argument against this, and I've seen this be made multiple times when talking about this, is that Ed Reed was wrong in making those issues and the problems that they face at some of these HBCU schools, is that shedding light on this is actually more hurtful than it is helpful, because it might deter students from wanting to go to these schools. It might deter potential coaches from wanting to take on a challenge that they face. Your argument, though, is that it's important to have these discussions. Why is it important to stare it right in the face and talk about it?
Because you need to know what the issue is. So when you talk to insiders at Bethune-Cookman or in the HBCU landscape, they're going to say that this is a systemic issue. This is a situation of white supremacy keeping money from the black schools. And maybe those things are true, but they have to be addressed and they have to be talked about. Coaches, on the other hand, are going to say that money has been mismanaged, that administration is hoarding funds and they're not using funds for what they've been allocated for. They're going to say that the conditions have not been met up. So that you have to have the conversations, because you have to dig into what the root of the problem is, and you have to solve it, because that is what's necessary to give your student athletes an experience that's worth having.
Yeah, in one of Ed Reed's video, he mentioned the, quote, broken mentalities of some of these administrators. Let's welcome in another guest here, our guest host today, Chris Singletary, our 24/7 Sports national recruiting analyst. Chris, you've been in a lot of these situations where you see how administrations operate and top down, where the money comes from, where it goes, all of these types of things. What's your read on what happened here with Ed Reed?
I think the first thing was a significant breakdown in communication from the beginning. A conversation had by the administration with regards to the resources they had at their disposal, what they were going to be able to utilize for the football program, and then also on Coach Reed's side, what did he need to take the program to the level that he wanted to take it? And being able to address that first and foremost is huge, because you want to be able to have the opportunity, like Carl said, for these young men and also the whole student body, the cheers team, the band, to be able to be under the situation that he could have brought there. The influence, not only just the football, but the life lessons that he was going to be able to bring into the program. The people that he was going to be able to touch, that wanted to be able to be affiliated, not only with him, but more importantly with Bethune-Cookman. And so I think when you look at this whole situation, it's kind of tragic. Again, the kids are the ones who are going suffer the most hurt in terms of not having the opportunity to be coached by Ed Reed and the staff that he would be able to put together. Bethune-Cookman not having the opportunity to have a guy that had the reach to be able to get them the notoriety and opportunities to continue to grow from an athletic standpoint, whether it was football, the whole athletic department, and ultimately be able to have a positive effect for the Daytona Beach community and the college itself.
Chris, if we need financial resources, though, don't you think you try to work it out with the person who can provide his own financial economy? You got Shaquille O'Neal, you got Edgerrin James, you have multiple people prepared to donate millions and millions of dollars. Is this not cutting your nose off to spite your face?
I totally agree with you because he has a reach and a network that they can't get to. And I'm talking about an instant reach. I mean, I'm looking on Instagram just a couple of days ago, and Edgerrin James was on campus and was going through the cafeteria, taking pictures in front of the marker for the university. And just in that immediate time, that's someone that I'm sure maybe has never been on Bethune-Cookman's campus. If he has, it was just only in a short time. But to be able to have that kind of effect because of who Ed Reed is, the things that he's accomplished as a player, and his reach, I think is something that, again, the conversation should have been had out of the gate of what they were looking for from a vision standpoint, what he was looking for from a vision standpoint, and the ultimate growth of the program, not only from a standpoint of player acquisition, recruiting, things like that, but just the infrastructure, manpower and recruiting, personnel operations, and upgrades and facilities. So I think there should have been a definite conversation out of the gate from Bethune-Cookman of what can you provide us and what do we need to help us grow and get to where we want to be.
Yeah,
this also has to be a lesson for coaches who take jobs from this standpoint. When they hire you and bring you in to run the football program, a lot of schools do not want your opinion on other issues. That's whether it's an HBCU, that's whether it's a PWI. If they have an English teacher that's flunking all the kids, if they have a sanitation department that's not keeping the school clean, they don't want your opinion. They only want you to win football games and deal with the football players. Most schools are not looking for a drastic change to their overall landscape in terms of a university.
Wait, but Carl, are you telling me that coaches don't want more control with the universities? I mean, how many times do we see that situation? I mean, it's something that, I'm sure Chris will talk about when we have this Greater Michigan discussion with what Jim Harbaugh wants to be in control over. I mean, you guys both see coaches, are a coach when it comes to Carl Reed. I mean, you see this often, right? It's always the power struggle and who gets the most control.
The coach wants control of everything. Yeah. The coach wants to control what is being served in the cafeteria. The coach wants to control whether it's going to rain or whether it's going to be sunny outside. The coach wants to be in control of how everything moves on campus. Unfortunately, they're not going to let you be in control of everything. And it's only a few guys that have a level of control that even extends outside of the football program.
Exactly. I mean, you have to control the main thing first, which is your football program, and those things that will immediately affect it. You don't want to be in a situation where you turn into the sensitive coach, because at the end of the day, it's for the greater good. It's for the greater good of the program, which are, in turn, the program is the kids. And that's at the end of the day, that's where us as adults, administrators, football coaches, we're all teachers. And so the goal is to affect these kids in a positive manner, put our issues and our situations aside and say, hey, what do we want if my child is playing at Bethune-Cookman? To me, that's the main thing. Yeah. I want to know what CJ and Bryce Singletary are going to have if they're student athletes at Bethune-Cookman, whether I'm the coach, the administrator, the AD, the president, the provost, on the board of regents. At the end of the day, what is going to make their opportunity to play at this university so good that when they come back and they're alums, they're going to say, I wish I would do it all over again at the same place with the same people at the same time.
You also have to understand, look at all the students that are protesting today at Bethune-Cookman. It's not just the football team. You have multiple sports teams, multiple students that are non-athletes. So at some point, we do have to pay attention to the concerns that they have, and these young people need to be heard, and their issues need to really, really be addressed. Because what it seems like from the protests and from the students that I've spoken to today, it's a lot just deeper than Ed Reed getting fired. And my father always taught me one thing. You can only say whatever you want to say when you're a man who doesn't need a job. That's why Deion Sanders can be so outspoken, because he's a man that legitimately doesn't need a job. Ed Reed is also another man who doesn't need a job. And so in this case, he spoke out and he doesn't have one. But maybe his true impact is to lead a movement in this situation in terms of securing funds and credibility for these schools, because you have to understand that the movement has to be greater than the moment.